People tell me I'm crazy.
Drive it without letting their tow truck driver know.
Yeah, it's a piece of shit. With this other piece of shit car he has the way back, it's fucking terrible. You can either be gay and buy a Submariner like every other gay guy on the planet and think you're cool because you have a stainless steel Submariner, and you're not.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another sit down with Took the Apex, and we're here with PJ Ghadimi from Exotic Car Hacks.
Oh, hi, my friend. Long time no see.
Yeah, thanks for having us out here.
You haven't been here in a while, right?
Since June?
We upgraded a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of movement with the cars, a lot of nice
It'll be even better this year, but probably like second quarter.
Yeah.
You know, like I'll start buying a ton of shit again. So
Yeah,
I've been bored and stuff, so come back then we'll have a ton of colors and Skittles and everything.
So tell us how you kind of got into the Exotic Car Hacks business.
So, I always said you can go into any industry, except you don't always have to go into it the way other people went into it. So I had a banking background. I saw a segment of the car space, which was the exotic car world, expanding in the idea that for the first time ever, when Audi bought Lamborghini and that transition happened, I was like, this is interesting. So they took a really niche product that people can't afford, and then they took a very average, reliable product, and they combined it. And I was like, this tells me that what they're thinking is that exotics are going to get popular, and they need a way to mass produce them and make them reliable. So in my head, I'm like, if that's the direction they're going, then finance probably has to follow, and that has to change. You can't just be like, nobody can afford Diablos, but we're going to make 30,000 more of them. It's like, that doesn't make sense. So somewhere in there, in the mid 2000s, like early 2000s actually, I decided that I was going to start buying exotic cars and driving them, because I thought that the demand for exotics would increase and that the supply would increase significantly, and so the price would become more affordable. We see this in technology, right? The first iPhone's like $10,000, and then people are like, well, now everybody has a computer in their hand, right? Like, and you can buy a computer for $300 or a gaming console for $50 when it started at like $800. So I knew this about exotic cars very early, and I kind of caught on to what manufacturers were doing, and I decided to get into this idea that exotic cars could be better retainer of financial wealth than normal cars. So I bet on different appreciation schedules, and very early on built an investment firm that enabled people to invest in art, cars, watches. And I thought that was unique and exclusive. Everybody thought I was crazy. But fast forward a couple of years, I was making pretty decent money, but it didn't make sense because I had a $100 million plus company. I was netting like $2 to $3 million a year. So it was like a 2% margin. And then I started realizing that this is something seriously wrong with this industry. And even the car dealers were not really rich, unless you own 7 dealerships. So I was like, this doesn't really make sense. There's got to be a disconnect somewhere. So I realized I took my talents of teaching and I said, hey, I'm really good at this and I understand and I see it a different way than most people and I see it ahead of time. So why don't I start teaching about cars, watches, art? And so I had started a company called Secret Entourage where I was teaching business and entrepreneurship, and I was like, this is going to be the framework for how I teach online. So if I figure out how to decode the internet world, again, very early, Instagram was not what it was, and with Facebook I just started rolling out ads. So people were like, Facebook ads, what is that? That's crazy. So as you get this platforms evolving, you're like, can I be ahead of these things, right? And that's exactly what happened. So I just decided that I was going to take the 5 years while I was ahead to learn the internet. And then the next 5 years getting really good at pitching it. So, my Secret Entourage platform didn't make a lot of money at the beginning. It took 4 or 5 years to learn it. But Exotic Car Hacks was the second platform I launched after I'd figured it out. And it made it 7 figures in its first year versus the other one was 5 years, And then Watch Trading Academy made its 7 figures in 6 months, and now every platform makes its 7 figures in 1 day. So, it's a very different model now, but we continue to teach alternative assets online. So Exotic Car Hacks kind of was born back, in those times, and it's evolved now to becoming a huge platform.
I kind of see what you're talking about with the cars and the watches being alternate assets, and I'm seeing a lot of that on my end as well, where people, specifically my age, now are looking at assets and things that they can invest in, not necessarily stocks where they can watch that, but also be able to use it and it'd be fungible for them.
So cars historically aren't really investments, like cars are not. You can't say it's an investment because 0.01% of the amount of cars could go up in value. historically not a good investment. But one thing that people misunderstand about cars is that they don't have to be investments. They were liabilities for decades because it was a flawed product, because it was associated with transportation, which is a need. I need to go from point A to point B. This Kia will take me there. Well, the next Kia is better. There's no value to the old Kia. There's no reason you'd want to drive a 1990 Kia today. It's not a more enjoyable experience. The AC doesn't work. Transmission sluggish. The wheels are like 10 inches and they're going to fall off the car. Probably can't even go more than 100, on the highway. So you look at that and you go, that doesn't make sense. Why would I ever want an old Kia? Well, where people underestimate exotic cars are wants. They're not needs. They're an experience. An experience is nostalgic, meaning it connects people to different times. So when I was a kid and I couldn't afford an exotic car and I looked on a wall, I had a different poster car than the kid today who looks at that. So there's a nostalgia to every generation of car. And so there's always a demand, even as cars get older, unlike Kias. So because it's not a transportation need, it's a want. So even though you could say maybe those cars won't go up in value, and it truly will not, the world and the idea of economics is built on supply and demand. And as something gets older, less of it is there, but a generation approaches the ability to now be old enough to afford it, right? Because you're young, you don't have money. You get old enough, you're like, I have 100 grand, I'll buy that old Ferrari I always wanted. So you're now having this generation that gets old at the same time, right? So you have this huge surplus of demand coming into the market. And guess what? There's no more supply because they're not making that old Ferrari anymore, right? And the new Ferrari is like 8 times more, so you still can't afford it. Like, so, there's that gap still. I mean, the majority of people can't afford it. So if you look at that and then you say, okay, how can I predict what happens? You can pretty much look at these algorithms and say, hey, over the next 3 years, I can probably buy this car right now, and it'll probably be worth something either the same or more. So I didn't actually lose any money. I bought my dream. I parked money like a savings account, and I just decided this wasn't for me anymore, or I got it out of my system, or I hit my dream, and maybe it's like starting to become maintenance heavy. I don't care. I don't want it anymore. It's like, okay, well, get your money back. Sometimes we misunderstand that when we say something is still good value or is worth buying, it's not because it's going to go up in value. Because often people compare it to the S&P 500 and they go, well, if you would have put that money in the S&P, you would have made 26%. So that's a bad investment. And I'm like, yeah, but your penis would have turned into a vagina and you wouldn't have had fun during the whole time you wouldn't have had something.
You couldn't have experienced.
So money is not meant to just be used to make more money and that's it. And that's how poor people think. Money is meant to create incredible experiences. And if that experience to your childhood is that Ferrari 355, Ferrari 575, whatever that is for you, then money is meant to be the gateway to have that experience. So if you can do that and retain money, even though you could compare it to something else and say, well, that made more money, so that, well, yeah, but what do you make more money for? At some point, you got to use it for something. You don't want to be buried with it. Like the idiot that tells you should drive a Camry, no matter what, because Warren Buffett drives a Camry. I'm like, Warren Buffett's gay. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter you're a billionaire or not. If you're not having an incredible life experience, you're not optimizing your humanity anyways, so it's just pure stupid. So in this case, you can do that and financially be responsible without losing a ton of money, right? Then that's the power. And I'll give you an example of that. I bought my Phantom. And I love the Phantom. It's my favorite, usable car. I think it's just the best driving experience for a non-race car. I bought my car 2 years old, meaning, and it had 4,000 miles on it. It has a 700K sticker, a very high sticker. And the guy sold it for 300K off that sticker with a few thousand miles. Now, the car looked brand new, still had the same warranty. Like, he drove it 2 years, still had, it was CPO2, so I had 2 more years of warranty left. And I paid 400 grand for it, he paid 700. So he lost 300K. Now, that's a car where it's not a hack, per se, as I teach on the internet. It's a car that's going to lose money, because Phantoms are heavy depreciating cars. I'm going to lose $30,000 maybe driving that car. That guy lost $300,000. Same exact experience, same exact timeline, same exact car. 2 different experiences, right? That's basically the essence of what Exotic Car Hacks teaches and why we enable people to understand that you can still drive your dream cars, you can still buy cars, park your money in them, and not be used to the same levels of depreciation or issues or anything else that comes with normal, brainwashed car buying behavior that we've been taught for 30 years as Carvana is a good alternative. Like who does this anymore?
So what was your first hack when you started realizing that, kind of moving away from investing in the cars and watches?
So first off, I used to lose 20 grand every Mercedes I bought when I was a kid. Like I bought a Mercedes, lost 20 grand. And then I started questioning this thing. Every time I went in dealer said, this Mercedes is the hottest thing on the road. I was like, yeah, this is the new E55. He's like, yeah, it's amazing. I'm like, okay. But then a week later when I went, I was like, I don't love it. Yeah, they're going soft now. I was like, what? So at first I bought it. I was like, oh my God, I must have bought it at the wrong time. And then the second time I'm like, bro, it gotta be like a scam. I'm like, this is a fucking trick or something. Then I was like, well, that's the game. Like every time you want to sell something, it's soft. Every time you want to buy something, it's strong. So that's how they negotiate. Mm-hmm. So I was like, there's an illusion here at how the dealership works and how this is created to basically make you feel a certain way. So I was like, if that's the case, they wouldn't be buying cars because there's no way you can time a market that changes every week. So I was like, this doesn't make any sense. So I was like, this is a lie. So then I bought a Porsche 911 Turbo. And when I bought that Porsche 911 Turbo, something really incredible happened. I drove it 2 years. I lost 5 grand. And I modded the shit out of it. Mm-hmm. So I thought to myself, I was like, I drove a car 3 times more expensive than a Mercedes. And I lost $5,000 after spending $30,000 in mods in it. And yet, these Mercedes, I barely drove them, and I was losing all the money. So I was like, what's different? So then I duplicated with a Gallardo, I duplicated with a Modena, and then I was like, I made money on the other two, and I was like, well, exotics are different than luxury cars, and exotics are different than commonly built cars. So I really started honing in on the supply and demand curves and what makes sense for which cars and which cars are popular. Low demand, high supply is going to go down, and vice versa.
So at what point did you end up purchasing your first hypercar per se?
So I used to own hypercars back when the Veyron first came out, but they were for business. So I'm really careful about distinguishing the two, because when you're in the car business, usually car dealers will pretend that their inventory is their collection, right? Like they're like, I have $30 million in cars. I'm like, no, you're inventorying, which means you're financing as a business $30 million in cars that you're flipping through.
Yeah.
So if I take your inventory away, how much money can you actually afford to put in cars that you register for yourself, etc.? So in the earlier days, I was doing that, where I was using other people's money to buy cars and make investments out of them, etc. So I've had hypercars for a while in that regard, interacted with them. But I didn't really buy my first hypercar till around, I think it was a Carrera GT first. That was the first, back then it was 500K.
Yeah.
Now it's
1.2,
2 million, meaning is a hypercar, what's considered a hypercar. So, but I think the real first $1 million car I really went after was my Carbon Senna personally. And so all the cars that I have today, I have about 7 or so hypercars and then 30 plus cars, but they're all my personal cars. They're not business cars or dealership cars or anything. So they're personal, registered to me personally. I drive them. Now, do I sell them? Yeah, if I get bored of them or I want to upgrade them, I may upgrade my Chiron to a better Chiron, a Super Sport or something. So I won't keep both. But they're not necessarily bought with the intent that they're going to be resold immediately or flipped. They're bought with the intent that they might go up in value and I might enjoy them. But a good example is my GT3 RS. I bought a GT3 RS knowing I would lose. I don't know if it's good because it was brand new, and I was this is a new product. It's highly produced. It's unlikely it's going to retain value. It's overpriced. And it tanked 50 grand. And I was like, okay, well, I'm a car guy. I wanted the GT3 RS. I don't give a shit. And other cars might make 500K or 200K, but in a collection, it evens itself out.
So what were some of I know you said that you managed some of the investment side of the cars, the specific cars. So when you were in that business, what were some factors and identifiers that kind of led you to picking those cars for your clients?
So it's always about picking, even for myself today, anything I buy. It's basically the idea that it's not available and that the money is not made on the purchase of it, but on finding it. Now, there's 2 ways to look at that. You can look at certain types of business models that go after very rare, old, historic cars. And they're like, oh, this is a GTO, super rare, one left, everybody's bidding on it. That's what you call a very low liquidity asset, which means that it has to be in front of the right person. There's only a select, probably 5 people on earth that can afford it or buy it. And you're just representing it in a way, right? You're never really owning it. You're just kind of being the person to bring it. So my stuff's a little different because I try to go after cars that are just really hard to get, but they still have high levels of liquidity, like a savings account. So if you need out, like I needed out of my Senna, 'cause I was building a really huge house, needed an extra $1 million. I was sure I needed it in a day. Car sold in a day.
Right.
And it still made me $100,000. So like the liquidity matters. And that's one of the things that's different, the way I look at things that people don't look at. So how many people are actually lined up that can afford it and would buy it at that price? Then I look at, can I buy it under that price to keep it? So if I have to have liquidity, I still make something.
Yeah.
But if I don't have to have liquidity at any time and I go, look, it's only $1 million, I'm never gonna have $1 million problem. Let me wait till, you know, like maturity, like when these cars start to disappear. So I buy the cars when they're available widely and they're slightly overpriced, but that's because they're available, so there's market competition and you have a better grasp of the ones you could buy, meaning there's more options and specs, right? So you can be like, I'm picking the better spec and I'm getting it at, fine, I'm spending up, but I'm getting the better car. What happens when you remove that car off the market, it now becomes worth more because there's no special cars left. All the other ones look black or white or something boring. And this one maybe was Tiffany blue or was baby blue or something that like worked on that car. And that's what you basically go. So, you know, the way I look at like what makes like really the criteria that makes that is it has to be unique and exclusive because we live in a world where no one wants what everyone has. If it's hard for you to find it and you're in the business or in the industry, how hard is it for a normal person to find that doesn't know the context, right? And that's where the money's made, in the fact that you found it first, right? And then can you negotiate it because people aren't looking there at the time? The Lamborghini Countach that I have is like a $2.8 million sticker. It's a really good car, but it's not going to get a lot of press because there's only 100. And the people that own them are collectors that don't drive them. And the people that drive them on TV are the people that don't own them. So it's not a car that's going to get people excited. But if you think about what it is, like a third-party company like Singer builds a 993, which is an old piece of shit, and they transform it into a retro mod. And they go, this is the modern Singer, and it drives great.
Yeah.
And they get $3 million for that car, right? And it started a $100K car. Then Lamborghini, an actual manufacturer, says, we're bringing back the most iconic car of all time we've ever built. And we're resto-modding it up with the last generation of the best Lamborghini you've ever had, the SVJ. We're going to team them up, and we're going to even take that one thing you didn't like about the SVJ transmission, and we're going to put a hybrid capacitor on it. And now it doesn't drive like that anymore. And people are like, yeah, no, I don't know. That's not worth $3 million to me. So I think of that, and I go, no, I think it is. And I think what happens is because people say that, then no one's buying them. And because no one knows anything about them, no one's looking at them. So they're like, I don't really know what that product is. But $3 million for Lamborghini, what else can I buy for $3 million, right?
Yeah.
So they look at that and go, well, there's other cars you can buy. But if you already have other cars, that's a really special car. It holds an iconic name. And because there were few available and people were scared of them, didn't understand them, you can negotiate them. And then you can buy them like $1 million off a sticker.
Yeah.
And once you do that, and the cars disappear, because there's only 100, so you'll never ever run into more than 2 to 3 at any given time.
Yeah.
Once those disappear and a good spec goes off the market, eventually people will be like, well, the hypercar market's $6 million. What else can I buy for $3 million? And they can be like, well, remember that Countach was amazing value for $3 million. So the thing with luxury goods is price indexes keep going up because manufacturing goes up.
Yeah.
So the Revuelto is 2 times the price of an Aventador. And it's not that it's 2 times a better car, it's just that it costs more to produce the same car. And what they have to put in the car is more expensive than the one. So it's not a simple engine anymore. You know, like things start to get complex in what they're building. So the cost of what the components are going, it just keeps going up. So they go, now it's $800K. So now you look at the Aventador, which was never going to be an investment because highly produced piece of shit from 2012 to 2014. But if you look at it, and you would look at an Aventador S at MSRP of $450K from back then, you may say that's amazing value. You know, like that today, an SVJ is like $800K, a Chiron's $3 million, a Countach $3 million. So like, what else can you buy for $400K? Not a lot of cars that look like an Aventador. So even though the guy bought the Aventador in 2018 as an S and thought, well, this is going to depreciate because they're dropping $100K. Well, I started predicting that no, Aventadors would be great value down the road. So
Yeah.
you could either hacked it or lost some money in the short term and drove it and enjoyed it and got out of it, or you could have literally kept it from the day you got in 18 to 25 today, and it'll still roughly be worth 10%, but you got to drive a Lamborghini for $40,000. Think about it. If you bought it brand new for like 7 years. So if you divide that 40,000 into 7 years of months,
Yeah.
that's really cheap.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's like $500 a month. So like it's crazy, to think that. But that's again like the point is looking and understanding these little like things that make each car unique, and not just assuming that because the Aventador dropped 100K, now the Revuelto will drop 100K. And it's not just, it doesn't work that way. We're in a weird financial market over the last maybe 5 years where you can literally look at past performance does not dictate future trend. And this is something that markets are very scared of, because they're like, wait a minute, if we know this went down, it'll correct that 50% and it'll go back up. And you're like, historically that's true, and that's what you should expect of cars. But back when that went down 50% and went up, you had 3 manufacturers making 4 cars each, and you had 1,000 cars being produced a year. Now you have 19 manufacturers making 20 model lines, and price index is 300% of what it was, and you have X amount more millionaires, X amount more billionaires. So like these variables change the playing field. People have choice.
Yeah.
So these things together don't necessarily dictate that the new product will tank. And something that happened during the 2020 era was that people would say, well, that specific mass event that occurred changed what people did. It really didn't. It just accelerated what was going to happen. So it was like people were going to buy more exotic cars, more watches, things like that. It accelerated. It gave them disposable money. They just did what they were going to do.
Yeah.
It just gave more money all at once.
Well, I know you mentioned the Countach. So do you think that cars with history, like the Countach, similar to how Ferrari did with the Enzo to the LaFerrari, do you think that we're going to see a lot of trends similar to those almost revival of the original cars?
I think the era of nostalgia is an era where people my age, like I'm 42, people that were in their 20s and couldn't afford cars back then, we're significantly richer now than we were there. Like significantly. That gap has widened a lot. That's why the middle class disappeared. So if you look at that, and we have that nostalgia, like, oh, I want to go buy something. The manufacturers have also realized that they missed an entire decade of technology because they didn't understand cars back then. So there was a whole era of like, we're building garbage cars that look really cool. And people are like, yeah, that's what looks cool to me. But then they go drive their dream from the 80s and they're like, that's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like my base BMW is faster, better, and just more enjoyable. So I think manufacturers are realizing that the design is the nostalgia, not what the old piece of shit was.
Right.
And I think that they are going to start not necessarily, like, they're running out of ideas for future shit. This is very, like, and the longer something is around, the longer it has to compete. So what happens is Ferrari was making cars, that's why I hate Ferrari. They were making cars back in the day for the passion of racing, driving, and everything. That's because they had no competition.
Yeah.
They didn't have competition. So they could do whatever they want. They're like, we're building this and it's going to look this way. People are like, that's crazy. I don't give a shit. What else you can buy? It's the only crazy looking thing on the road.
Yeah.
Okay, then Lamborghini came. Well, then Porsche came. Then BMW design is futuristic. Then Mercedes has a hypercar. You know, like everybody has something unique. You can say Lexus is a hypercar. Fucking, for God's sake, Lexus. Like, who the fuck is Lexus? Like, it made cars for 90-year-olds. So you look at that and you go, they have all these things. And now they have to compete. So in order for Ferrari to compete, they have to go make more product and more garbage product that's affordable and reachable, and really preserve that super ideology for like the Pista, the XX models, the like stuff for the real guys that want cars. And if they don't produce the Romas, if they don't produce the Porsche Boxsters and the Caymans and all that shit, then they can't compete financially. So it doesn't give them birth to like these new cars. But in order to compete financially, they have to take a good product like the 812 GTS and fit it with the same fucking buttons they fit the Roma in.
Yeah.
So they go, well, otherwise we have to redesign everything all the time. So this recycling of parts that Mercedes basically invented since the old days is something that they're learning from. And they're like, because they're no longer becoming niche manufacturers, they're becoming volume manufacturers. And they're like, Mercedes does this. Last year's S-Class is this year's E-Class. You know, the same chassis. And so just that's why they keep getting bigger. And people are like, I don't get why these cars get bigger. They just recycle this shit and they just put bigger bodies on it. They're like, it just works. So this is what niche manufacturers have had to learn. And so they've lost their audience because they've had to mass manufacture things.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you saw over the last 5 years a rise in what I call novelty, like the Gordon cars. I think it looks like shit. But someone goes, hey, people want the McLaren F1. They can't reach the McLaren F1. It drives like a piece of shit now. So like, they're like, well, we'll modernize it. And we don't need to be McLaren to do it anymore because the parts are widely available and I can just kind of make something of something by Frankensteining the best of everything. And they do that. And ultimately, because of that, novelty's been on the rise, you know, which is uniqueness. It's like, what do I get that's different? I mean, that's why an Elva gets a lot more attention than a Chiron, even though it's not as expensive.
Yeah.
It's just different. People are like, I've never seen a car that looks like that. Yeah, I've never seen that. What is that? You know? And they ignore that that's the big elephant because that's the interesting child, you know, and they're like, I don't get what that looks, you know, why that even exists.
It's interesting seeing all of the novelty stuff, like you said, just kind of come back. I do think that it's going to be a good direction for cars in a way that it's giving them a new way to think.
Yeah, what novelty doesn't have, though, is it doesn't have support. And the reason why it can't be mass-produced, because if you don't have novelty, like, why don't I have a Koenigsegg? Good-looking car, like super cool-looking car, like very exciting, fucking thing opens up, it does all kinds of theatrics, whatever. It's supposed to do theatrics, it's the point of a $3 million car. Cool-looking fucking car. They always break.
Yeah.
Nobody can fix them.
No.
Guy's got to fly in, car's got to be at the shop 6 months. Okay, you have $3 million sitting, imagine in the market. You're making $400,000 or $500K a year without doing much effort, without being a pro. You maybe make $1 million to $2 million if you're good at it. What'd you do? Well, it's cool if the car's sitting in your garage and you can drive it once a week because you have extra money.
Yeah.
But it doesn't really matter if the car's sitting at a dealership 6 months out of the year. You can't even look at it.
Yeah.
Right? So if no one can fix it and you can't get it back on the road, it's just not going to stick. Meaning it's not going to have a wider audience, because that's one of the reasons McLaren is getting so much hate. You know, like they break down, they're not reliable, etc. It's not McLaren that's not reliable. They built a race car for the street. They teamed it up with Jaguar, with a bunch of fucking incompetent people at a dealership. And then they gave it 1 or 2 techs for McLaren at each Jaguar dealership, and they said, you guys handle this. But then they started mass producing cars like the 570S.
Yeah.
But they were equal pieces of shit because they weren't meant to be driven on the streets. They were like, hey, this is supposed to like go out there. And they're like, yeah, these 2 techs. So even though they give the appearance of a big McLaren dealership, they don't have the support, so they get the bad rep, you know? This happened to me with the Bugatti. I went to a Bugatti dealer to do an oil change. It took 2.5 months. I'm like, what kind of stupid fucking... The guy tells me, Bugatti's testing something. And I'm like, that's good for Bugatti. Why the fuck do I care? I'm getting an oil change. Well, the parts department is out at testing. And I'm like, well, what do you mean the parts department? What the fuck? Wait, there's only one guy that works part in the entire fucking like country, and then 2? Yeah. So I'm like, well, that's fucking stupid, right? So then what do? Now I get the game. I can go to a third-party shop, and because the Chiron's not that special of a kind of infrastructure, like you can do an oil service pretty easily.
Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. You know, like, it's okay. It costs still 10 grand, but it can happen in 3 days. This is a lot better than 3 months.
Yeah.
So, and that's the way you got to kind of think about it. Like, if you have the aftermarket support and if you have the dealer support, then you're going to have more of that willingness to get into the brand and everything else. And that's the problem with novelties. You just don't have that. So That's why Pagani is starting to pick up, because people are starting to see the dealership in the model and they're investing in that. Other Koenigsegg is not, because of that. You know, that's why Pagani is starting to hold that MSRP, you know, and slightly go over that, versus Koenigsegg is still significantly reduced from MSRP, you know, and very hurt.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking to Saman Soleimani, and we were discussing the Regera and how he had friends that would go out in the Regera and they wouldn't be able to drive it without letting their tow truck driver know.
Yeah, it's a piece of shit.
I mean, we have people like Steve Hamilton who's driving his Regera, and it's been in the shop for weeks and months.
It was here when they were delivering my Elva. It was on the same truck.
Exactly.
With this other piece of shit car he has the way back. It's fucking terrible.
It's definitely interesting how, I mean, what you said about the Bugatti dealership, I think that's very surprising, especially when you have a product that's $3 million.
And it's also getting more popular, right?
Exactly.
Like, so they're going to have...
Because now more people have more money and they're seeing the hype
Especially, think about it, in South Florida, where you have there's probably 20 Chiron owners within 10 miles of me.
Yeah.
Where else? It's either here or Monaco, you know, and how do you not have support for that when 10% of your base is somewhere, you know, you're I don't know, I'm just not going to care, you know?
Yeah, exactly. In your eyes, what is your favorite car that you've owned in the past 2 years?
The best driving car is the 918.
I agree.
My favorite car is the Phantom. That's a preference thing. Everybody likes, you're younger, you need more testosterone, you're all about the race, you know. I try to rank cars based on the experience it creates for the experience it's supposed to create, and also the experience for how it's going to be used. So even though the manufacturer says, this is why I hate the GT3 RS, because the manufacturer says, that's a track car, you know, we're going to build it like a track car. But it avoids the conversation that while it's a track car, it's likely that 99% will also be used on the street and will be driven to the track. They're not going to be put in the back of a trailer and taken to track. They're going to be put miles. They're going to go to track. So it has a street component there, you like it or not. So if it sounds like shit at low RPM, it's not going to be exciting for most people. So if you avoid that, you're avoiding a conversation about the experience of the use of the car. So in my head, when I think of those things, I look at the value for what you get, the dollar you spend, and the driving experience, both in the street, the way not the manufacturer intended, and then on a track, the way the manufacturer intended. And so for me, the Phantom does what it does really well. It doesn't create compromise. It creates an unparalleled experience of power. And I don't mean power and speed. I mean power and feeling. You just know you're better than everybody else outside the car.
Yeah.
And it's funny, but it's just how it works. Drive one, you'll get it. And it does that really, really well. So it does what it's supposed to do. It's like a royalty car. Kings drove it. You know, the Queen drives it. That's what you expect. You want to feel that way, right? So from touching the steering wheel to driving it to being driven in it, all of it just hits home, right? They get it. And I think they did a great job in the new series. They just really, really killed it. 918 does that because it embodies the future. It's futuristic looking. It's exciting. It's powerful. It sounds good. You don't expect the Porsche to sound good. It sounds good from the factory. So there's a lot of it takes the Porsche experience to the next level. And it's the next level Porsche. So it's supposed to do that, right? Yeah. So for me, those are some of the best cars in the world. I mean, you can look at the best, to me, fun driving experience is the Elva. Because I think the Monza doesn't do that. It's an example of a car that avoids the street drive and goes, hey, on the track, you have a helmet. Sure, it's a cool experience with a helmet, but it takes away the idea of driving 100 miles an hour without a windshield, which you don't really experience in anything else. And it's exciting, it's different. And yet you don't look gay like one of those slingshot things, you know, sort of the peasant thing. So it's the elevated experience of a motorcycle, you know, for very, very few people. And that's an exciting experience for what it is.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make any excuse. When they asked the CEO, they were like, hey, is that going to be street legal? He's like, probably not, but you know what? You're not getting pulled over, so it doesn't matter. You know, he's that's a reality-based, you know, it's hey, you're driving $2 million car, cops gonna pull you over and give you a picture and be like, this is amazing, I'm gonna tell my kids I saw this. But that's the power of understanding the use of the car. And you could also look at some other cars like the Pista, in my opinion, one of the best Ferraris ever made. You know, you can look at that and say that it embodied what Ferrari was, you know, and it really got it. The original Ford GT, one of the best driving experiences of all time. They really got it, and it just really hits. I mean, all cars, you can find an incredible car in every category. And if you put them against each other for the right reasons, then you can have some really interesting perspective of saying, if I said, what's better, a Countach or a Chiron, I'd tell you a Chiron. Now, I tell you, Countach is a more fun experience to drive, and I think it's a better car. I think they put more effort in it. It's a better car. But the Chiron does what it's supposed to do better, meaning what you expect. And what do you expect out of a $3 million car? Drama.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be dramatic. And it does that. And I think, look at the evolution of Bugatti. The Veyron, Chiron, Tourbillon. Tourbillon is much more dramatic,
Yeah.
right? And what does it do? It has the drama on the outside for the people outside,
Yep.
but it brings you back to the analog inside. So like, it really understands like what it's trying to do. And what Bugatti has tried to do, if you look at their history, a lot of drama, a lot of speed, and then it's like, well, it's so expensive to maintain and use. Well, here's a Chiron. It's much more affordable to maintain and much more reliable, and it is a driving thing that's better. And it's comfortable, and it's like, okay, cool, I can get that. And then here's the evolution again, the Tourbillon, which like separates the two, the driver and the drama outside, and it still retains both.
Yeah.
And that's how you know manufacturers are paying attention to like what people are going to be doing, and they keep doing it.
I want to pivot a little bit to the negotiation side of things. So
Okay.
I know that you and I have kind of gone back and forth on a few cars. I know I was helping you with the Elva a couple times, and I know you're always looking for stuff. So what is your negotiation tactics when you're always going into specific cars? Because I know that you always have like a benchmark number that you want to be
I
at,
always hit
and-
my number, or very close.
Yeah.
Always. People tell me I'm crazy. They're like, there's no way that guy will sell that car for something. Getting what you want at the price you want, even if it's rare, comes down to trust that you're negotiating with the end user. Meaning, like, that's a big piece. Like, you have to know that you're talking to the decision maker that either owns the car or owns the money. If you own the car, you have an emotional connection to that car and the money parked in it. So, like, if you're the middle guy, like the dealer, and it's your consignment car, you don't have an urgency because that money doesn't mean anything to you. It's free money to you.
Right.
But if you're the owner, 3 million is 3 million. The dealer may say 3.1 is my margin, right? Like my 100K margin. But the owner will say 3 million used to or something else is better than 3.1 in a year, maybe.
Yeah.
Because 100K is nothing. You know, like if you let it sit, well, the car's sitting, you're not using it.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, is to understand that. Like, do you even have the right person? Are you having a conversation with the right person, or are you having a conversation with someone that needs margin? And then the second thing is timing matters. Understanding the human behavior of the person. So I buy all my hypercars between November and December. Because if a dealer or a person is going to take a loss on a car, they're going to do it at the end where they know they've already made profit for the year and they need a tax write-off. So they're going to look at it and say, okay, I wasn't willing to take less than 3.5 because I paid 3.6 and I was willing to lose 100. But it hasn't sold in 6 months. And if I took 3.2 now, technically with a 500K write-off on loss, it would be roughly a 200K loss. Because I had such a solid year.
Yeah.
So let me take that right now. And so the negotiation becomes more real there. And then the last piece to it is also for them to know that if they, like when cars are very expensive, you get a lot of phone calls. Because a lot of people are interested in mine. You don't get a lot of buyers, you get a lot of phone calls. Those are two different things. So if you identify who the real buyer is, like if I call someone and I'm like, I'm the one buying, like I'm not a broker, like this is my money. If I tell you we're good, like we make a deal, like you're getting a wire deposit for 100 grand in 5 minutes. You know,
Yeah.
I may need a day to wire you, so it might be like 4 p.m. I may not be able to send you a $4 million wire right now, but I will send you 100 grand in 5 minutes if we agree to this number.
Yeah.
That's a very different conversation than what's the best price you think we can talk about for the next 3 weeks while I mentally masturbate, jerk off on your face, and then magically come up with, I found another one because I'm scared and I got cold feet, right? So intent to buy and capacity to buy play a significant role in the dollar you get on a car. That's something that people don't realize. They shop around too much. They don't know what they want, and they don't even know what the price is that's worth buying. So they're just like you're an idiot of a client that I call him a fucking moron. He doesn't even know me, but he wanted to buy my car for $1,070,000. That car sold for 1.3. I offered him a car 1.1. Okay, like there's 200K in profit in the car.
Yeah.
Like, but because he's an idiot, he doesn't understand. Like he thinks a good deal is like a number that's not reasonable, that doesn't exist. But a lot of people are like that. And they think, well, I want to steal this. And it's like, okay, but there's always a guy at that number anyway. So you're not really providing value.
Yeah.
Like you're not really like offering value, you know, by making that offer. Because the same dealer that maybe has that car on consignment would probably pay what you're offering. So like they won't even give you the offer because that's a stupid number.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, that's how you buy a car. And I'm like, that's not how you buy a car. That's how you buy the wrong cars. Because the only reason a dealer would cut it loose lower than that is because it's not worth anything and they know something about it. It's going to get fucked up. And they're like, I'm not going to put that inventory at any dollar. Yeah?
Yeah.
And the other thing you can also like really pay attention to is who has the car and what does that mean for the future of how long that car is going to sit. So I know that when people consign really exciting cars at really big dealerships, they are positioning themselves for a significant loss because those dealers basically work this way. They will take the car and they will put it on consignment. They will put it really high. They will say, we're fishing, we want money for trades. And then that car won't sell for 6 months. What do you think happens to the buyer? Gets frustrated.
Yeah.
Then they'll bring him a low ball and he feels that's all he got, right? And then they'll steal the car. If you get that game and you get the middle, you can reach the owner, you're just fuck the dealer.
Yeah.
Get it? Like,
Yeah.
because the dealer is trying to fuck the client. And by you doing that, you're technically fucking the fucker while getting the client what he wants, or somewhat that he would have been reasonable.
Yeah.
But they made him unreasonable, you know?
Yeah. So I know that we had touched a little bit about Ferrari. I'm noticing on my end of the things that the demand for modern Ferraris has gone down by a lot. And we're noticing that on the market end as well, where
It's mass-produced garbage here.
yeah, where the 296 is dropping immediately. The SF90 went from a $700,000 car to barely a $400,000 car. Whereas Lamborghini, on the other hand, you have Huracan Performantes, you have STOs going for a little bit under sticker, but they're still holding value better than the Ferraris comparatively. What do you think that is? Do you think that the current generation with money finds Lamborghinis more desirable, or?
No, it's because when you get lied to long enough, you don't want to participate anymore. That's all it is. It's like, buy a Roma, we'll buy back, we'll get you a nice car. I buy a Roma, I don't love the car, but I'm gonna get my special car. Well, this works if you're actually buying back the car and I'm not losing money, not a huge amount of money, and I'm actually getting my car. When neither happens, the market goes, well, what's the point of that? Think about the math. If I tell you buy 3 SM90s, I'll give you a 12-month Maison. Seems like a good deal, predictable. 200, 200, 200. Maybe I get a car. 600K loss. Secondary market on A12 is 600K over sticker. It's a wash. There's no benefit to the game.
Yeah.
Why didn't I just pay 600K over and buy my A12? What was the point of that? Right?
Yeah.
If the math doesn't add up, the savvier buyers you're selling to, people want, like, they're not dumb retarded, like I mean, some of them are, but the majority of people earn some level of money to buy a 300K car and up. They're somewhat conscious of how pricing works and indexes work, so they're like, okay, it's not a good bet anymore. Lamborghini has been making good product and has been doing a much better job at the dealer level in supporting that product. They've done a much better job at the branding level to encompassing their clients into their specialty programs. Porsche is heading where Ferrari is going. Ferrari just went down the toilet. Their new product doesn't hit. Their specialty product is near impossible to get. The gap is getting too large. So Yeah, if you're the guy that's been around 20 years and has bought $10 million, $20 million of Ferraris and you're getting them, your experience is probably very different than the guy that walks in the dealership. The problem, though, is they've been playing that game for a while now. And 10 years ago, the guys walking in those dealerships, buying Romas and whatever the fuck was out at the time that was going to turn into something exciting. So the legacy doesn't carry on. It doesn't just go, yeah, well, I'll tell my kids to do the same thing. This has been a good game for me. I drove Ferraris for free, and, I got into this cool car. So it's funny to say, but it's almost the same as economics. The brand abandoned the middle class the same way the currency abandons the middle class. So, and the middle class of its customer base, you could say, more so than the, middle class of the United States. But I think that's what's happening, and I think there's a cost to that middle class abandonment, is that as people get richer, they find affinity to other brands that have better product. And they're more reliable. There's no product at Ferrari that's really more exciting than its counterpart at Lamborghini. That's more exciting. And conservatism, which was a big thing too in the last 30 years, and because if 20 years ago you had an exotic car, you were frowned upon and you were showcasing your wealth, and this is a different dynamic. So conservative looking stuff was exciting. And I think you can do this with watches too, like Patek versus RM. Like Pateks are conservative designs. They worked because back in the day, people didn't want others to know they had money. So they wore something that was 200 grand. Nobody knew it was 200 grand. It was like, haha, I'm silently rich.
Yeah.
Now people are like, fuck you, I want a big ass RM and I want everybody to know I'm rich. Okay. But that was a trend that was starting 10 years ago. So if 10 years ago you didn't catch that, you didn't pay attention to that. Then you're now missing out, and you're fucking that up. And I think that two brands that did this exceptionally well. I mean, I want to say three, but two that did this exceptionally well. Lamborghini really understood this and honed in on it. Rolls-Royce really bringing down their age group to the 40s instead of the 60s and 80s, knowing people get rich faster. They want more hip product, exciting colors. Look at Rolls-Royce 10 years ago. Black on tan, white on tan, maroon on tan. Look at Rolls-Royce today. The top selling models, blue interior, orange interior, full yellow, full fuck you, rap video, right? Okay, perfect example. Our new money will be flashier. New money will be younger. 10 years ago, they said, create that product. The BMW merger made that possible. So they honed in on it. And that merger gave them the capacity to now come out with product non-merged, but that hits that criteria perfectly.
Right.
That's why it doesn't appreciate as much as it did. That's why its price index keeps going up. That's why demand keeps going up. That's why people are considering paying $500,000-$600,000 for a Cullinan over an Urus. It has its own prestige in its design. And that's why its best kept dollar in models are black badge and crazy eccentric color shit. Right? So this is they just got it. And Lamborghini got this really well too.
So if you were to predict 3 to 5 cars over the next year to 2 years, what would you say are good, strong cars that you can drive essentially for free and maybe turn a profit on them?
4 GT, old one, is going to keep going up like crazy. 918 will go up. Murcielago will keep going up. That's got fucking stupid money left in it. I think the F355 is just going to be hard for it to go up because there are going to be so fewer and fewer cars. So I don't know that it falls into high liquidity. It's starting to become a very niche product. But I would tell you those are almost guaranteed. I think the Pista is a very undervalued product. I think that's going to go up because undervalued, not a lot. It'll go up. So you can probably now drive a Pista free for the next 15, 20 years. If you bought a Pista and added 1,500 miles every year for 10 to 15 years, you would probably get all your money back. At every year segment. Anytime you wanted to bail out and be I'm out. I don't want it after 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. You'll get all your money back, including any repairs unless you have something catastrophic, all the time. I think that's really real product that you can drive it. It's modern, it's exciting, it's good, and you can do that. I think the S3J will I think it's already at a peak. I think it'll go up in 5-6 years, like to something like maybe 1.3, 1.4. I don't see that being a $2 million car, but there's so many factors that come in play. The other ones I told you are like almost guarantees. I'm really bad at what I do if I miss those cars, because they hit every single facet of like what makes a car, go up in value, like every piece. So it's going to be very, like I'm going to suck if you guys watch this like 2 years later. This is like terrible. If I'm like, none of these cars went up and they all went down, I'm like, oh fuck, I need a new job.
So you have the cars. Let's talk a little bit about the watches. I see the RM that you have on right now. What are some of your favorite watch brands or watches that you own?
RMs are novelties. I love novelties. They're hard to get, the right ones. I don't wear like poverty RMs, so like, it has to be like white ceramics or something exciting, no carbon bullshit, whatever. So that's key. I really like stuff that you can't easily find and that a lot of people don't know. Like I have an RM63. A lot of people don't even know what that is. It's like a round RM, and it's not the typical round RM. It's a very poetic watch, and it's like only 100 grand. This is 400 grand, so there's a gap, but it's like great. I'm a huge fan of AP. I think AP is a stepping stone into RM, and for daily wear, it's some of the best. They make some of the nicest design. They're innovative in their way. They just started this thing called sand gold. It's fucking beautiful. Like they have frosted designs that look like diamonds, but they're not. There's diamond dust and shit. Like they're artistic. They're innovative. I think that's really, really important. I have a ton of Rolexes. I don't like them. I own them. Like I own a rainbow, like a factory rainbow. I own a meteorite dial, a platinum, all of the day date variations. I like wearing day dates when I'm like, I feel like an old school player. Put dice in the car, have the gold watch, whatever. But generally, like I like more artistic level watches. I like novelty watches like MB&F. Very popular. I'm not a fan of horology-based watches like FP Journe and Vacheron that people are like, this is amazing. I'm big on design generally, so I look at that. Even Patek's line, the new line is garbage, so I like the old Nautilus like 5990 1Rs. I don't wear anything that's not precious metal or precious like different like ceramic or something unique. Like I don't own a stainless steel watch, because I think it's stupid. So I mean, I like it, like the Omega Snoopy for people that want cheaper stuff. I think it's different, like Snoopy on a watch. Reminiscing of your childhood. But generally speaking, I mean, I think there's so much money to be made in watches. I'm always buying watches, like probably about 200 to 300K in watches every week. So like I currently have roughly like a $2.5 million collection of watches. But like I'm still buying actively 200 to 300K every week that I'm flipping in watches, because it's just such an incredible moneymaker.
So what would you say is some good criteria for people that are looking to get into that like $10,000 and under price point?
You can either be gay and buy a Submariner like every other gay guy on the planet and think you're cool because you have a stainless steel Submariner, and you're not. You've been put on notice. If you drive a Tesla, you're gay. And if you wear a Submariner, you're gay. I've said it. I've said it here. I've said it on every podcast. You're gay, and if you drive a Cybertruck, you're a transgender. I'm sorry. We'll call you out for it. Anyways, anyone that thinks it's a good idea is a fucking imbecile. But anyways, there are so many watch brands you can get into once you actually learn. But I think watches come down to comfort and design. So do you enjoy what you're looking at? Do you feel the artistic nature of it? And I think one brand that I think is highly underrated, that has a lot of opportunity in just both making money and also being a good store of wealth and enjoying, is brands like Panerai. Omega is a good brand. It's just also like very normal and known. But I think Panerai is like you can get like a beautiful watch at 50 cents on the dollar. It'll retain its value. It could be rose gold and it'd be like 20, 30K on MSRP, and you're buying it for like 10, 12 grand. It's a lot, it's like much more exciting looking than a Submariner, and it doesn't scream, I didn't know what the fuck to do, and I just walked in and bought the same thing everyone else buys, because everyone that's gay has one. He's probably going to edit this, watch. We offend people when we speak, and it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. There's nothing wrong with being gay. Just be gay in private. Keep your Submariner in private at home, Like, put that in your box, look at it, just know you're the only one that enjoys it, and just walk on, you know?
Exactly, yeah. So I've known you for a couple of years now. You've provided similar to like a mentor to me. What is some advice that you would give to anybody that's working towards a goal similar to yours, trying to have a car collection like this, understand the alternate asset space, and just get to a level of success that they are trying to attain?
So you don't have to be in alternative assets to get rich.
Yeah.
But you have to understand them, because you get rich to buy shit. So you have to learn how to buy it correctly, so you don't keep having expenditures, and instead you build equity in things. That's just anybody who's there's two ways to live. Either you don't want this stuff, and that's fine. You could drive like a nice Mercedes and say, I'm fine, I'll just lease it and lose all the money, and I don't care, and I don't really need the latest and greatest. I don't need Ferraris. I could be worth $100 million and I don't really need a Bugatti, right? I'm fine driving an S-Class. It's fine, like that's okay.
Yeah.
It's better than the guy that pretends to drive a Camry, right? Like, it's okay, you can do that, right? No, not everyone has to have a passion for cars. But if you're gonna buy shit you're passionate about, and you're gonna keep buying it because you wanna get rich and doing it, do it correctly so that you can retain the money, and you make sure the money doesn't just keep spilling over and disappearing, so you have to work twice as hard to keep accumulating it, right? And you can still enjoy your life, because if you have these things and you love them and you genuinely want cars and you love cars, it's a culture thing, right? You like cars. When you like things and you enjoy them, it inspires you to do more, right? You're like, oh, I'm not just working, I'm enjoying that. Oh, it's pushing me harder, I want the next one, I want to rise. That's normal. You should want a bigger house, you should want better food, you should want better cars. And anyone who tells you otherwise is an absolute fucking moron. But you should absolutely want more in life. That's why time moves forward. It doesn't move backwards. So you don't want less, you want more. That's normal. Anyone that tells you Outback's a good steakhouse is just poor and has never eaten at a good steakhouse. Anyone that tells you Red Lobster is good seafood just has not, like, that Red Lobster, guys, is like McDonald's diarrhea food. Just don't do it. Money comes from the combination of skill and consistency. When consistency turns into commitment and skill turns into mastery, money turns into wealth. That's it. There's no secret formula. That's the formula. You pick a skill, you consistently deliver that skill, so you're getting better. The consistency turns into a commitment. The skill turns into mastery, because no one can do it better than you, or do it at a higher level, to the point where you're committed to bringing that mastery to the world. You no longer need to chase people. Money will chase you. People will be like, I want to pay you. I'm sorry, I'm booked for next 2 months. $5,000 more. I'm booked for next 2 months. $100,000 more. I just need you to do it. I don't trust someone else to do it. Okay, my price just went up to $100,000.
Yeah.
My whole calendar cleared. Everyone can rebook at $100,000, right? Okay, now it's that. Right. So it's about this idea that you have to stick to something, because it takes 5 years to learn it, 5 years to get good at it, and 10 years to master it. So if you're not going to commit to something for 20 years, just don't start it. Or be honest with yourself and say, this is just to make money. I still have to find my why, and I still have to find my what I'm going to do to really like push forward. But people convince themselves that like what they're making some money in is a direction, when really it's a distraction. So you have to be able to stay focused and do what you do best. And sometimes staying focused means learning to say no. You know, many times I get approached with like, dude, you want an investment in this, guaranteed it makes money. I'm like, it's not my cup of tea. And they're like, guaranteed, dude, perfect record. I'm like, it's not my industry. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
You know, when they pitch me new business ideas, I'm like, it's not what I do. You know, like, so that means that if I accept my focus, because I have to learn this industry. And what, contrary to what people think, is they think when you're really rich or you figured it out or you've had multiple success stories, you're now automatically like the next thing is instant success.
Yeah.
No. If I go into healthcare today, it's still going to take me 5 years to learn the industry. It's going to take me 5 years to get good at it. Now, I might accelerate that, and it might maybe take me 20% less time because I understand systems, processes, and like how to do that faster. And I have resources to buy time. So I can say, let's put 5 people on this from day one. I don't have to like bootstrap it. Like, you guys go work on the marketing. I already have a marketing team. You know what? You guys start working on this.
Yeah.
But I will lose money from somewhere else to do that, right? And I will go into this. This is usually why people sell their companies because they're like, oh, I'm not staying tied into it, right? Because they're like, I'm trying to get a big payout so I can go figure something else out because it wasn't their why to begin with. You see, I've created all my companies in the same field, so I'm never working a day in my life. Like, why do people work? So they can buy a ton of cars, go do car events, have fun with their friends, and then like buy watches and hang out and go to great restaurants. But what if that was your job? What if your job every day was to wake up and be a professional car buyer with your own money?
Yep.
What I'm saying is like everything I do is something related to my passion, right? Mm-hmm. So it's no different than saying like porn stars have been made because all they do is they wake up and fuck. And it's like, that's all. Why do we do it? Why do we need 10 cars for women? So like at the end of the day, you have to think about that as like, it has a component to it that guy figured out how to do it and get paid, right? Now, given most of them don't get paid much and you're destroying your reputation, there's a downside to that. So the argument that I'm making is if you have to still stick to that 20-year timeline and you have to really commit to what is that skill that you're willing to consistently bring to the world and that is going to evolve into that mastery that you're committing to bring to the world for the rest. And if you don't have that, you'll never get stupid rich. Now, you might get lucky, and that's the problem with young people. They chase the gamble, which is the draw. They're like, how do I do that? Because that guy got rich quick. Yeah. So that's why they get excited because they go, well, that guy made a $500 investment into crypto. Anything that's reverse can always sound better than it is. You know, it's like if I told you, yeah, well, there's a guy that made $1 million on an SVJ back in 2020. Okay. But everybody would have said the opposite in 2020. You know, they wouldn't have thought that. Yeah. So it's always, that's the thing. It's not even a risk, it's a gamble. And so that's why, like one of the things I try to teach my wife all the time is she trades foreign currency. Like the other day she comes to me and she's like, I made 72 grand today. I'm like, congratulations, great. I'm like, she's like, you're not excited? I'm like, you're gonna lose it next week. She's like, what? Why would I lose it next week? Because you gambled to make it. You took a gamble. You didn't take a strategic position. Right. You said, I'm gambling this is gonna go up. And I bet and it won. The next gamble, you're not gonna win. Get it? Like, because the house always wins. So at the end, you're gonna keep gambling. You're gonna have a couple of good runs, and you're gonna really confuse skill with luck. And what happens is, as big as you won is as big as you lose. Yeah. So at the end of the 12 months, when you look at your track record, you're like, well, I had 9 hits at 100K each. I made 900 grand, but I had 8 losses at 100 grand each, so I technically made 100. So the argument is you would have been better making 5K each hit and having 100 hits at 5K because now you've learned that skill, how to make 5K every time, and it's a skill. Yeah. And you have 100 transactions to prove it, and you have a 20% loss because everybody loses too. So you have an 80% success rate versus a 0% success rate because all the gambles got wiped out by more gamble. You know, like so, and you never really like compound the success. So your baseline is, I hope next year I can make 300K versus this year, I strategically made 5 and I have a path to 7 and I have a path to $1 million. But yeah, it's not as exciting as waking up and said, I made 70K holding my dick in my hand today, right? Again, that's how young people look at things. They're more excited about the idea of hitting the jackpot than they're excited about like committing to something and putting in the work. It happens all the time. You see it all day on Instagram, and then they project that bullshit that they're rich, and then like you have hookers that don't have $500 in their name, they have $30,000 bags, and you got guys on yachts and having a cigar in front of a Ferrari, and you're like, dude, you have $100 real quick for a tip, and you're like, oh, what are you scared of? I don't know, man. Like, why do you need $100 from me? It's like, wait, you don't have $100? You're like fucking taking a picture that looks like it's fucking like 10 million. Like, what is that disconnect? Like, so far from reality. Like, why are you even putting that picture? You know, as a child, I never took a single picture in front of someone else's car. Like, everybody's like, I'm just pretending. Like, I'm like, why? Like, what's the point? Yeah. You know, just put it on your story. You saw a cool car. Okay, cool. Like, walk on, carry on. You know, go earn it. Doesn't matter.
Awesome. I appreciate you sitting down with us.
My pleasure, buddy.
And having us out here to see your awesome collection. Yeah. And looking forward to doing it.
And hopefully everybody learned not to buy some Mariners and Teslas today.
Yep.
That's the one thing you took back from this conversation. Take that back.
Yep, absolutely. But thanks again, PJ.
Pleasure, buddy.
Yep.
See you next time.
Awesome.